that was not on the phone itself?
That was not on the phone. Not that I'm aware of.
In terms of the way to physically review, how would you do that on a cell phone and compare it against a cell-right extraction?
Well, there's a couple things I could do. I could look at the different artifacts that are extracted, meaning, so I would look maybe at a particular phone call was made at a certain time and date, or a certain picture that was there at a certain time and date, or a video, or so on and so forth, whatever that's there. That's one way of doing it, yes.
So I want to make sure I'm clear. You're saying you would look at outside evidence from the phone and see if it agrees?
Correct, yes.
In terms of the information and the data that's put out there, what is the purpose of taking it off the phone?
Well, you also don't want to use the original, and just pretty much making a copy of the phone so that you don't ruin anything, delete anything, or compromise the device, or anything of that nature. So you work off that copy.
In terms of when the phone is brought to you, are there steps that are taken to make sure that there's no outside or internet or network access with the phone?
Yeah, so usually the phones are put in what's called airplane mode, where you disable all cellular connections.
And in terms of the type of extraction that was done in this case, what type of extraction was done?
This is called an advanced logical extraction. So,
what does that mean?
So there's different forms of extraction. The advanced logical pretty much gets, for the most part, when I use the word everything on there, when I say everything, meaning the context, their pictures, their videos, the communications, any sort of communications that are on there, deleted items, specifically deleted items.
Okay. And in terms of to get the advanced logical extraction, what information do you need as an examiner?
Meaning, I'm
Do
sorry.
you need the passcode to the phone?
Yes, you do need the password, correct, yes.
Oh, nothing further, Your Honor.
Is this witness excused?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You may step down. You're excused.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. For your next witness, please.
Brendan Collins.
Thank you. You, Brendan Collins.
Yes, sir.
Welcome. This is our witness stand. Can you go over here, please? When you get there, just remain standing for a bit. Raise your right hand and be sworn.
You solemnly swear or affirm that testimony that you give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
And state your full legal name for the record.
Brendan Collins.
Please spell your first and last name for the court report.
My first name is spelled B-R-E-N-D-A-N. My last name is spelled C-O-L-L-I-N-S.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Collins, that microphone in front of you, adjust up or down. It doesn't move back and forth.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Counsel, you may.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Collins. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well.
Where are you employed?
I'm an FBI agent. So I'm employed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and my full job title is Supervisory Special Agent.
And how long have you held that position?
This current position, about 18 months. I've been employed by the FBI for since 2012.
And as far as education, what types of degrees do you hold?
I have a bachelor's.
And is it in a specific area?
I was a history major in college.
Were you employed anywhere else prior to working for the FBI?
By the Army.
And how long were you employed by the Army?
About 6.5 years. I had a couple different jobs.
Okay. Going back to where you're working now, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, what are your responsibilities as an FBI agent?
Well, agents do all sorts of different things. Generally, agents are all investigators, and in the FBI, we investigate a myriad of crimes from violent crimes, economic crimes. We also have national security mandates. Me specifically right now, I'm the supervisor of a squad that focuses on transnational organized crime.
So do you also have an ancillary assignment?
Not right now, I used to.
Would you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is the CAST team for the FBI?
Sure. So CAST, for the Cellular Analysis Survey Team, is a group of specially trained and equipped agents and task force officers who do cellular analysis or mobile device location analysis.
And so when you say that, what types of records are you working with?
Usually records from phone companies or other service providers.
Okay. Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is historical cell site analysis?
Sure. So when someone uses a phone or a mobile device to do something, to make a call, to send or receive a text, to check a sports score, or check their email, post something on social media, that's to connect to a cellular network or through the internet. When you connect through the cellular network, there's a record that's generated by the phone company. So you have T-Mobile gives you service to your cell phone. When you make a call, you'll see records on your T-Mobile sheets about that call. Historic cell site analysis is using those records to answer questions.
So what's the purpose of historical cell site analysis?
To help with investigations.
And what are the main components of a historical cell site analysis?
Well, if you're being asked to do like a location analysis, in other words, the case involves trying to determine where a particular device was at a certain point in time, you really have three things that you need. First, you need the records for that particular device. That will say that it'll look at the initial records, like a call detail record, for instance, will sort of look like a billing statement that you might get from a phone company. It will say, this date and time, this phone number, place this call to this other number, etc. Except it will also have additional information. It will say a cell tower that the phone connected to when it made that call. So you need that record about the device. You also need a record of tower locations that says, okay, the tower the phone connected to is located at this particular point on the Earth. You put those two things together into some sort of mapping software and plots it, and then it will give you a general area of where the device was at the time that it connected to that tower.
So you said device. Can you testify a specific person was in a specific area?
No.
Why not?
Because the records I have are just about devices.
Okay. So there are limitations to your testimony.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm talking about devices, not people.
Have you received any specialized training to become an agent that does CAST as
Yes.
well? What is that?
To be CAST certified is pretty extensive. There's several stages that the certification process is broken into. So I started my initial training in 2017. The first phase of training is the CAST basic course. And that's a 2 or 3 day course where agents and officers from our local, state, or other federal agencies are exposed to what cellular analysis is and how to do it at the basic level.
Do you use the CAST work in your day-to-day cases? Before you became a supervisor?
Yes.
And so is this a required assignment to go to the CAST team?
No, want to interrupt, but there's a lot more training than just that 2-day thing. Is that okay?
Let's start with, to do that first 2-day training.
Yeah, so the first
Is that
2-day
mandatory for
Yes.
the FBI?
Yeah.
To go on past that,
Yeah.
is that something you have to apply for?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and to explain after that first initial training, what happens? What's the next level of training you complete?
So the next course is called the advanced course, and it's a week-long course. And that's just a more in-depth dive into each of the networks. So specifically, what are the uniquenesses of, say, Verizon or T-Mobile, AT&T, Sprint when it was a standalone provider? What do their records look like? What are the uniquenesses of the way their network's designed, et cetera. After the advanced course, then we have a sort of a test. It's like a week long. When I went through, it was a mix of part in the classroom and part in the field, where it's all scenario-based. So you, for instance, you'd be like a kidnapping scenario. Like, hey, this child was abducted. Your job is the asset going through it to try and use the records to develop a search location and say, hey, I think that we need to go here to try and recover the child. You do a portion in the classroom, you do a portion in the real world where they have test runs set up in different locations, and you validate the results right there. So you either find the person or you wouldn't, and at the end you either pass or fail. So I passed, and I was allowed to continue to the certification course, which is a 4-week course. The first 2 weeks are very academic. We have a week that's basically a semester's worth of material condensed into a week. It's put on by professors from the Florida Institute of Technology. We bring in representatives from all the major cell phone providers in the U.S., both their law enforcement relations and records custodians personnel. We talk about these are the types of records that we keep in our specific record, which in our specific company. We also bring in personnel from the network engineers, so the people who build the network, who design it. We go to infrastructure, so I've been at the Sprint's Network Operations Center, where they oversee the management of the whole the network across the country, et cetera. And then at the end of that, there's a test, and you either pass and are certified, or you don't.
Okay, so Special Agent Collins, are you certified in CAST analysis?
Yes.
How long have you held that certification for?
I got certified in September of 2018.
Is there continuing education or recertification that's required?
Yes. So to keep your CAST certification, every year you have to attend a recertification course.
Okay. Is all of the training specifically from the FBF?
No.
What other agencies and I guess companies do the training for you?
Yes, we have partnerships, or not partnerships, but we'll bring in educators from a lot of different companies. So obviously the different telecommunications companies are critical. So we have them come to the recertification conference every year. We've had a range of other people. We've had Apple, Qualcomm, Oracle, people in the field of GPS, cellular engineering, vehicles for vehicle telematics, and anybody that's sort of involved in that ecosystem.
Okay, so you mentioned Apple, Qualcomm. What are those?
Those are different manufacturers.
Is there also specific as to cellular technology and how it works, training on that?
For what?
In terms of being a CAST certification?
After recertification?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been specializing in call detail records analysis?
So call detail record analysis is really like the bread and butter of what CAST does. So since I started the training process in 2017, that's it's when I first really got exposed to working call detail records, or CDRs.
Okay, and approximately how many times have you done this type of analysis?
I've done more than 130 cases that have included more than approximately 300 sets of records.
When you say a set of records,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
Like a call detail record, or an engineering report, some sort of data report, some sort of report from a phone company about a particular device.
And in terms of the types of cases that you've worked, what have they been?
Gamut. Violent crimes like homicides or shootings, white-collar crimes, and then public corruption, crimes against children, terrorism.
Okay. Have you worked cases where you've been called upon to determine the location of a cell phone?
Yes.
How many?
I mean, for the 130 so cases that I've helped with,
Yes.
The vast majority of those have to do with location, historical location of the phone.
Have you had the opportunity to validate your historical call data reconstructions, or that you do?
Yes.
And how do you do that?
Well, as we mentioned sort of during I was talking about the train up, if it's a situation, a case where we're trying to find someone who we believe is in possession of the device, and you do an analysis and you say, I think we need to go to this house, and we go there, and the person and the phone are there, that's validation. If we have a case where we have some sort of other evidence that corroborates it, like crimes against children case, and there's metadata on media that was produced at a specific location, and we have cell site that says, okay, we know this film or something was produced here, and here's what the cell site looks like, and that corroborates it. A couple examples.
So when you say metadata, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, I mean, that's outside of what I do with CAST, but that would be something that would be in a media file, perhaps, that somebody else is, who, if you extract the file from the phone using a physical extraction device or a computer or some other device, sometimes there's metadata embedded within the image or the video or whatever that will tell you different things, such as when the picture or movie was produced, where it may have been produced, or the picture may have been taken, etc.
Here at this time, I would offer Special Agent Collins as an expert in the area of historical cell site and cellular technology and offer for water.
Hey, you want to come side for a second? Thank you. Thank you. Can we arrange for a restroom break for Mr. Demons, please?
Yes, Judge.
We'll be in recess.
Mandates. Me specifically right now, I'm the supervisor of a squad that focuses on transnational organized crime.
So do you also have an ancillary assignment?
Not right now, I used to.
Would you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is the CAST team for the FBI?
Sure. So CAST, for the Cellular Analysis Survey Team, is a group of specially trained and equipped agents and task force officers who do cellular analysis or mobile device location analysis.
And so when you say that, what types of records are you working with?
Usually records from phone companies or other service providers.
Okay. Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is historical cell site analysis?
Sure. So when someone uses a phone or a mobile device to do something, to make a call, to send or receive a text, to check a sports score, or check their email, post something on social media, that's to connect to a cellular network or through the internet. When you connect through the cellular network, there's a record that's generated by the phone company. So if you have T-Mobile gives you service to your cell phone, when you make a call, you'll see records on your T-Mobile sheets about that call. Historic cell site analysis is using those records to answer questions.
So what's the purpose of historical cell site analysis?
To help with investigations.
And what are the main components of a historical cell site analysis?
Well, if you're being asked to do like a location analysis, in other words, to the case involves trying to determine where a particular device was at a certain point in time, you really have three things that you need. First, you need the records for that particular device. That will say that the initial records that I call detail record, for instance, will sort of look like a billing statement that you might get from a phone company. It will say, this date and time, this phone number, place this call to this other number, etc. Except it will also have additional information. It will say a cell tower that the phone connected to when it made that call. So you need that record about the device. You also need a record of tower locations that says, okay, the tower the phone connected to is located at this particular point on the Earth. You put those two things together into some sort of mapping software and plots it, and then it will give you a general area of where the device was at the time that it connected to that tower.
So you said device. Can you testify a specific person was in a specific area?
No.
Why not?
Because the records I have are just about devices.
Okay. So there are limitations to your testimony.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm talking about devices, not people.
Have you received any specialized training to become an agent that does CAST as
Yes.
well? What is that?
To be CAST certified is pretty extensive. There's several stages that the certification process is broken into. So I started my initial training in 2017. The first phase of training is the CAST basic course. That's a 2 or 3 day course where agents and officers from our local, state, or other federal agencies are exposed to what cellular analysis is and how to do it at the basic level.
Do you use the CAST work in your day-to-day cases? Before you became a supervisor?
Yes.
And so is this a required assignment to go to the CAST team?
I don't want to interrupt, but there's a lot more training than just that 2-day thing. Is that okay?
Let's start with, to do that first 2-day training.
Yeah, so the first...
Is that mandatory?
Yes.
For this?
Yeah.
To go on past that,
Yeah.
is that something you have to apply for?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and to explain after that first initial training, what happens? What's the next level of training you complete?
So the next course is called the advanced course, and it's a week-long course. And that's just a more in-depth dive into each of the networks. So specifically, what are the uniquenesses of, say, Verizon or T-Mobile, AT&T, Sprint, when it was a standalone provider? What do their records look like? What are the uniquenesses of the way their network's designed, et cetera? After the advanced course, then we have a sort of a test. It's like a week long. When I went through, it was a mix of part in the classroom and part in the field, where it's all scenario based. So you, for instance, you'd be like a kidnapping scenario. You'd be like, hey, this child was abducted. Your job as the asset going through to try and use the records to develop a search location and say, yeah, I think that we need to go here to try and recover the child. You do a portion in the classroom, you do a portion in the real world where they have test runs set up at different locations, and you validate the results right there. So you either find the person or you wouldn't. And at the end, you either pass or fail. So I passed, and I was allowed to continue to the certification course, which is a 4-week course. The first 2 weeks are very academic. We have a week that's basically a semester's worth of material condensed into a week. It's put on by professors from the Florida Institute of Technology. We bring in representatives from all the major cell phone providers in the U.S., both their law enforcement relations and records custodians personnel. We talk about these are the types of records that we keep in our specific record, which in our specific company. We also bring in personnel from the network engineers, so the people who build the network, who design it. We go to infrastructure, so I've been at the Sprint's Network Operations Center, where they oversee the management of the whole the network across the country, et cetera. And then at the end of that, there's a test, and you either pass and are certified, or you don't.
Okay, so Special Agent Collins, are you certified in CAST analysis?
Yes.
How long have you held that certification for?
I got certified in September of 2018.
Is there continuing education or recertification that's required?
Yes. So to keep your CAS certification, every year you have to attend a recertification course.
Okay. Is all of the training specifically from the FBF?
No.
What other agencies and I guess companies do the training for you?
Yes, we have partnerships, or not partnerships, but we'll bring in educators from a lot of different companies. So obviously the different telecommunications companies are critical. So we have them come to the recertification conference.
Electrolyte, instant hydration.
Vehicles for vehicle telematics, and anybody that's sort of involved in that ecosystem.
Okay, so you mentioned Apple, Qualcomm. What are those?
Those are different manufacturers.
Is there also specific as to cellular technology and how it works, training on that?
For what?
In terms of being a CAST certification?
After recertification?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been specializing in call detail records analysis? Further, I'm going to give Werner a copy of the order that was discussed about the report that was done by Judge Siegel. This was signed on April 4th of 2022. Sure.
Are you intending to seek to admit the report?
Yes. And that's what that.
Admit the report.
Yes, and that's what that.
Should we just object now that the reports are inadmissible?
I don't know what you're speaking of.
I don't think they admitted to admitting the report. We said we would
Excuse
agree.
me, I only want to hear from one. Whose witness is this going to be?
This is my witness, Judge.
All right, so you make the objection. So this is an order on the admissibility of expert witness testimony by Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Brendan Collins. Let me read it. This is your order to judge. Says your defendant stipulated to the admissibility at trial of the expert testimony of Special Agent Brendan Collins in the area of cellular phone forensics. This stipulation includes Special Agent Collins' testimony regarding the cellular analysis survey team CAST report, and based upon the defendant's stipulation to the order and judge of Special Agent Collins' expert testimony in the area of cellular phone forensics and on the CAST report is admissible at trial. What's the issue?
So I believe counsel is trying to say that we are going to object to the admissibility of the CAS report. We had stipulated to his testimony after deposing him. And then I will also bring to the record, she's trying to bring in 3 different CAS reports. When we had deposed Agent Collins, we only had deposed him as to one CAS report. We had extensive conversations about whether the state would be bringing in the additional CAS reports. We had agreed at that time, if they were going to bring in those reports, she would let us know and we would depose him again. That never happened. We were always told it would be the one report of the 2 phone numbers, and which we are objecting to the admissibility of those reports based on hearsay. Also, they are misleading, and also the information in those reports have not been properly validated by an engineer.
Okay, so as of April 4th, 2022, what report was in existence as far as Special Agent Collins?
So the first one that was with regards to Anthony Williams' cell phone, as well as Mr. Demon's cell phone. That one was
What
done.
other reports are out there?
The other ones were generated in May of 2022 and immediately turned over to to defense counsel, and I have a very different recollection of that. This was listed at the same time as Mr. Zeller that we just had, so there was never any additional request to depose this witness. But Special Agent Collins has been available for the last however long if they so chose to do so.
And Judge, I would just for the record make an objection to her characterizing that particular phone that is actually registered to David King as Mr. Dennis phone. I don't believe that has been established.
Thank you. So, what is the report?
Judge, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I asked for the report. I need to know what the report says. I'm not familiar with it.
Yes, sir. So they're all substantially similar. They do different cell phones at different times. That one is the one of Mr. Demons and Mr. Williams, explaining how the cellular...
Objection again.
Explaining how...
I don't understand. I'm asked for what the report is. I want to see it, and you say objection again. What's your objection?
My objection is to the characterization of that it's Mr. Gibbons' phone and Mr. Williams' phone, actually. Yes.
Do you have another copy of that report?
Was emailed it to Ms. Liberty.
I'll get it from Ms. Bennett.
Thank you.
So what is Agent Collins going to do?
Agent Collins would testify as to how he does the analysis, how he generates those timing advance bands, and what it means as to the location of the cellular devices based on the records, which is all done as a product of the accuracy of the records and the fact that the cell phone communicates in a consistent way based on the laws of physics with a cell phone tower.
Because in here, it talks about the phone 772-713-9807. T-Mobile says Jamel Demons. This it goes below 954-248-9081. T-Mobile Anthony Williams. And it has the date of the report being May 12, 2022.
Yes, Your Honor.
So this report date is after the order date.
It is. That is the second. It's the same one. It was all done at the same time. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was a typo that had to be finished on the spelling of the defendant's name. which is why it was generated at a second time on that point.
May I respond, Judge?
You respond, you say what you want, counsel.
I would just say the civil fact that it has Mr. Evans' name on it, Mr. Williams' name, that needs to be stricken along with the other 3 reports, which were actually filed after the COSO. It is my recollection that we were told in court that they would not be used. There was a question if Jameson Francois' CAS report would be used. She didn't give us a definitive answer. We finally rested on the fact that she was not going to be using Mr. Francois' phone. So it is a little bit of surprise that is now being introduced at trial. And the other one, I believe, with Withers, we never ever discussed it.
Hold on,
Yes, Judge.
hold on.
Yes, sir.
I don't fully understand this order dated April 22nd. It says, order to judge a special agent Collins' expert testimony in the area of cellular phone forensics and on the CAS report. So he's going to testify. I wouldn't normally admit a CAS report. I don't see why it would come in here. I don't see this specifically saying it's admissible. I see it's saying Special Agent Collins' expert testimony in the area of the cellular phone forensics and on the CAS reports. And this will sue. He can testify. He's here. You can ask him questions that you want, but I don't believe I'd be letting this into evidence. It's just, he's here. His testimony is his testimony.
And so, with regards to that, the necessity of the maps is that the Special Agent Collins is going to testify in terms of latitude, longitude, and distances on that. Without a map, and using that for the jurors to be able to understand where this is being placed on the actual map, that's going in a vacuum.
Well, you can show it as a demonstrative aid if that's going to help him illustrate his testimony. I don't have an issue with that. That's a different question for me. Typically, we don't just admit an expert's report. The expert's here is going to testify.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
And it's not clear for me from this order that that's what Judge Siegel anticipated, that the report was coming in. I don't have any issue regarding his testimony. They're not even, the defense indicated they're not even going to board hire him regarding his qualifications. So, he's able to testify. But as far as the report coming in, I don't read your order that way, respectfully.
Understood. So, Your Honor, then if I can show the admissibility of the maps with that on there, then you would evaluate them as their authored individual.
I don't have an issue. I mean, if he's able to identify them and talk to them, that's a different issue. You're wanting to admit the whole report in as the way I understand it, as substantive evidence. And typically that's not the way it's done. I mean, the testimony is the testimony of the witness, not the report. Otherwise it's cumulative, it's duplicative of whatever he was going to testify to. I don't see, the order talks about a date in April. This report was given after that date. I don't know if this is what the judge intended. You said there were some amendments. I don't know what the amendments are. I don't know if they were approved by the defense. They're saying they're objecting to it. Typically, that's just not done the way it's being done, putting in the document.
So, Your Honor, there are quite a number of cases on that specific issue, which I'm happy to provide the court.
What specific issue? About a report coming in?
About the maps and the mapping being admissible. So that would be...
I'm not concerned about the mapping. I'm concerned about the report per se.
Well, I just want to make sure we're clear on what specifically. So some of them, this specific items are demonstrative on that. So for example, when, and I can put it up so everybody can see so it's clear. So Special Agent Collins, I anticipate, would testify that, for example, there is cell tower usage and how that would be displayed on that. So that wouldn't be confused with cell site usage. So that's because there could be the possibility that a juror would think, well, this is showing that the phone is somewhere in this purple area, which would not be correct, as opposed to, for example, a timing advanced illustration, which in this case, the witnesses can testify that the phone is somewhere in this band based on, and then as well as, so in terms of the way the mapping is then done, to make it clear and understand that these red dots are not the specific locations, but rather the towers that are used. I think it's important for the jurors to understand that and have the first part of that analysis there so that there can't be any sort of improper recall by the jurors on that. So then as to the locations on those, then this would be one of the timing advance. So if they don't have the other first part,
Judge, I think it's renewed again.
Excuse me, counsel. I don't think she's done.
Okay, sorry, Judge.
so it's more so
done.
the fact that the timing advance data and the way it is done, I don't want there to be any confusion with the jurors to saying that this is overstating the evidence. So if I just put in these particular items without the full explanation, because I don't think it is appropriate to do so without the jurors understanding the limitations of the testimony and what the different maps show. So on that would be the specific parts the state would be seeking to introduce, because the locations of the towers are important to how the math is done.
My understanding is the defense is objecting to that exhibit. Is that correct?
Yes, Judge.
Does that include the maps?
That does include the maps, Judge.
So they're objecting to it. So I guess you have, in some way, it has to come out how it was done. And you can talk to the witness and see if he can, authenticate it. Originally I was thinking that you were using them as demonstrative, and I would ask him if that helps illustrate his testimony or not. But if you're saying you're not concerned with that, you want to admit them into evidence. So the objection is, what's the objection?
That it's irrelevant. I would also object to the fact that
It's not relevant?
it is not relevant. It's also referring to Mr. Demon's phone. Nobody's established that number was his. It's referring to Mr. Williams' phone. We've got no testimony that establishes that it's Mr. Williams' phone. If we were to go to the other two reports, I don't know how the court's ruling on them. Again, she's referencing phone numbers, assigning them to people. We have had no testimony or evidence before the court that those actual phone numbers belong to those individuals.
Thank you. So I haven't heard any phone numbers being assigned to any individuals.
If I may, Your Honor,
Sure.
that is why the state introduced the phone slip that has been brought in through the defendant's fingerprint, that he endorsed that as his telephone number, and as such, the state can now argue that. As to all of the other individuals, those are coming in from the phone records themselves. For example, Dundevius Withers and Chris Thomas, as I went through with the Sprint records custodian.
So let me start. What is the phone number that's on that corner sheet that you're saying is Mr. Demons?
772-713-9807. And that's why we had the fingerprint analysis done, and they came in and identified that as the fingerprint of the defendant.
Thank you. And what's the next phone number?
The next two phone numbers that are the easiest ones to go through, Your Honor, are the phone numbers of Christopher Thomas, 772-713-2341. And if Your Honor recalls,
713341. Should be another number.
772-713-2341. And I can bring up here for Your Honor the specific information on Mr. Thomas's phone that was brought in earlier through the Sprint Records custodian. And there's the phone number at the top of the screen, 772-713-2341. Billing address for Chris Thomas.
All right.
Going down in the same records, because they were produced at the same time. In addition, the email address with it is Chris Thomas 86. Again, consistent with Christopher Thomas. The next phone number that is on this particular is 954-371-7895. And that is belonging to an individual by the name of Dontavius Withers.
Are there any other phone numbers this witness is going to be testifying about?
Yes, Your Honor. He would also be testifying on the T-Mobile records to the individual by the name of Jameson Francois, and to go to the subscriber information for Mr. Francois's phone. This is related to Miss Adria Scott, which there's been testimony that Adria, or AA, is the wife of Jameson Francois. In addition, that phone number for Mr. Francois, 954-376-9158, is consistently in the phone download of Mr. Demons and is listed as track. And there are plenty of photographs and things of that nature that would show and illustrate that Mr. Jameson Francois, also known as Track, is the owner of that phone number.
But it's actually in his wife's name.
Correct. And the rest of the subscriber information also says it is a family plan with multiple lines.
All right,
Rate
so
plan, family, unlimited, 2 lines included.
on the subscriber information for the first phone that you're suggesting is Mr. Demons, what does that subscriber information look like?
That comes back to his mother, Jamie King.
Let's go back now. What's on I don't know what the exhibit number was. Did you print out anything on these phones? I think there was a printout. They objected to it.
There's multiple printouts on the phone, not all of which have been entered into evidence at this point, Your Honor.
But what's in evidence so far?
I can pull that up and just take a moment. This is in State 64.
This is the extraction.
That's correct. for example, 95446. Three 769-158. There are 1,129 messages between the phone owner, Mr. Demons, and other individuals in which Mr. Francois is a participant in those conversations.
So again, you indicated this is Mr. Demon's phone. You just told me the subscriber information reflects that it's his mother's phone.
The plan is paid for by his mother. His mother's phone is in here. She is listed under Brazy, B-R-A-Z-Y, lady, and that's the 772-501-6942, which is listed as an additional number subscriber on the phone for Mr. and the phone records from T-Mobile from Mr. Dimmons.
Judge, I just want to point out, she's saying that these are messages between Mr. Demons and various people. This cell rate actually tells you, like she stated, like it's going to track, but it's coming from young Sat Chaser Howard, and he's registering as the owner of the 9807 phone, which in these reports keep going back to Mr. Demons, but under cell rate is showing young Sat Chaser Howard.
And so in further showing as to who owns the phone, we can look at all of the videos and images of Mr. Demons, of which there are over 1,000 videos on the phone showing he is the user and owner of this particular device.
Judge, again, I don't think that shows that he's a user and owner. It shows that whoever had possession of this phone took videos of Mr. Demons. They're not selfies. These are actually pictures that appears to be taken by another party.
Well, these are all videos, actually. If you want to go to the selfies, I can go to the 10,963 images to show some of those.
I don't know how she's determining their selfies, Judge, without a testimony possession.
So, for example, in this particular image, it's a screenshot of a FaceTime conversation in which the large image is going to be the person who's on the other line. The local device is going to be the tiny picture up at the top, which is of Mr. Demons. This is just one of many, many examples.
And can you go back to the main subscriber information page?
In terms of this one? Yes.
So where does it show who the subscribers are?
This is from the device itself, Your Honor. This is an extraction from Celebrate of that phone in terms of information as to user accounts that are on this particular phone. You have Ynw Melly Booking at gmail.com. You have Ynw Melly, a Twitter account. You have Ynw Melly, an Instagram account. You have Melly.Montana, the Snapchat account, which the Snapchat is already in evidence of showing that one. You have Jamel.Demons, a Facebook account as well on that. In terms of the content of the messages themselves as well, show that this was Mr. Demons' phone and that he is sending out information and things personal to himself on this. So there are multiple different types of information to show them.
Judge, if I may, if we were to actually go through all of these I've informed the court before, you're going to see messages from both of the decedents to their girlfriends, to other people. There's no question that our client had used his phone, but so did all his friends. So this was a phone that they passed amongst each other. I don't think bringing up the Celebrite or a couple of selfies proves that it was actually his phone. For that argument, there's pictures of Michael Jackson on there. So can I say that Michael Jackson is well owned his phone? Based on your argument, that's what she said.
To New York City, the good and the bad. I'm doing something totally liberating. Life's too short not to try something new.
I love it when you do that thing.
Just picture good ideas. I guess he shared the phone in the future also.
Hey, anything else? State? No, anything else from the defense?
I would just point out that not only is that phone in Jamie King's name, so is the phone that she's trying to assign to Anthony Williams is the victim's name.
Well, I don't, the counsel suggested and gave me 4 phone numbers. One, counsel indicated was Mr. Demon's phone. That's the 713-9807-772 area code. And she had, there was one that was listed as a Christopher Thomas phone, another one as a Mr. Withers phone, and another one as Francois, also known as Track's phone. I haven't seen one as being on Mr. Williams. Am I mistaken?
Yes, Your Honor, there was one on Mr. Williams that was on the initial report. That is the 954-248-9081.
954-248.
9081.
And that's Mr. Williams, one of the students. You're saying
Yes.
it's his phone?
Correct, that phone, and defense counsel is well aware of the fact that the phone that Mr. Williams had at the time of his death was recovered, and a full file system extraction was done from that phone that shows it was his phone on that, and as well as the fact that the Celebrate extraction that we just went through also has Mr. Williams saved under the name of Twin in the phone of Mr. Demmons, in which there's discussions back and forth that identify the 954-248-9081 phone number as that of Mr. Williams. And that there's discussions, for example, that they have gone on trips recently. They've gone to Detroit. And there's then again photos of Mr. Williams on the phone of Mr. Demmons in Detroit that are sent back and forth on that.
Regarding this witness, is he going to testify regarding Mr. Williams' phone?
He's going to testify to the locations of that particular cell phone,
And they're
yes.
going to be identified by phone number?
At both.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Anything else?
Just, if you're going to let it in for demonstrative purposes, I would say at the very least that the names are stricken from the reports and redacted, sorry. And we refer to only the phone numbers, not to the individuals.
Thank you. So we're going to bring the jury in now. As far as that demonstrative, I'm getting conflicting information. I don't want something going before the jury about this is Mr. Demon's phone or this one's phone, because there's circumstantial evidence to that effect, but I'm not putting that in evidence that way. Just show the portion that shows the maps, and you can talk about the maps and the other things, but leave out the portion that has at the bottom, or I forget if it's the bottom or top, that identifies Janelle Demon's phone. Just use it by the phone number.
Use it by the phone number. Okay, that's not a problem. So I think I would need just a couple of moments to adjust that.
Go ahead.
Okay.
We're in recess.
Thank you, Judge.
But counsel, I haven't, let's bring it back in. It is yo-yo, but I didn't say tell them not to read. I'm worried about that.
Sure, makes sense.
Just bring it back in. Jury's coming in. Jury entering. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Please be seated. Let the record once again reflect the presence of our jury. As well as the defendant, Mr. Edmonds, his counsel, the assistant attorney. All witness remains on the stand. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize, but I need to resolve certain issues before we go further. It's approaching 5 o'clock now, so my thought is let me resolve it. We'll see you all back tomorrow morning. So remember the admonition: do not discuss the case. Don't form any opinion about the case. Don't allow anyone to discuss the case in your presence. Certainly no research about the case. All right? You hear that every time we break. I tell you that, and it's very important. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. We'll see you back tomorrow at 9. Thank you. Thank you. Let the record reflect the jury stepped down. Anything further to discuss, counsel?
No, sir. I don't believe so, sir.
No, Your Honor, I will, if I can make the witness aware, especially Judge Collins, because you're on the stand in the middle of your testimony, I can't have any communication with you outside the presence of defense counsel. If there's any emergencies or anything else, please contact my office so they can get a message to me so that Judge Collins is a record of that.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We're adjourned.
Thank you. Danny.
To an individual by the name of Dontavius Withers.
Are there any other phone numbers this witness is going to be testifying with?
Yes, Your Honor. He would also be testifying on the T-Mobile records to
Big dog status, I'm a big dog vet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette. Yeah. Ride around the field with a stick all black. Try with a poker, we with all that. Yeah.
the phone download of Mr. Demons and is listed as track. And there are plenty of photographs and things of that nature that would show and illustrate that Mr. Jameson Francois, also known as Track, is the owner of that phone number.
But it's actually in his wife's name.
Correct. And if you, the rest of the subscriber information also says it is a family plan with multiple lines.
All right,
Rate
so
plan, family, unlimited, 2 lines included.
on the subscriber information for the first phone that you're suggesting is Mr. Demons, what does that subscriber information look like?
That comes back to his mother, Jamie King.
Let's go back now. What's on I don't know what the exhibit number was. Did you print out anything on these phones? I think there was a printout. They objected to it.
There's multiple printouts on the phone, not all of which have been entered into evidence at this point, Your Honor.
But what's in evidence so far?
I can pull that up and just take a moment. This is in state.
Okay, so let's break this down. I have 2 great guests joining me. Mina, I want to start with you, and then Jeffrey, I want to get your take on things here. Mina, we were talking about Raven Liberty, who is arguing against this evidence coming in. We just saw in court right now, and you know, I did some background research on her, and she had represented Kodak Black previously, and I see your point. When I looked up her name to get some trial intake and insight on her, a lot of people were talking about not her legal acumen, but all the wrong things. Do you think we're going to see her taking a forefront during the course of this trial, or do you think she's going to be more of a background role? What do you think?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to her taking more of a forefront. She deserves that. It's a shame that when you Google her, you know, these frivolous things come up about her body language, or she's laughing too much with the defendant. She is a respectable lawyer. She's as you mentioned, she's defended other celebrities as well, and she deserves to be known for her work. Not only that, the things that she is objecting to is very important. Now, we haven't seen any concrete evidence at this point that points beyond the reasonable doubt that Melly committed this murder. But according to the prosecution's opening remarks, there is an alleged text message of some sort of admission of guilt on Melly's behalf. And obviously that text message would have been found on the phone. So it's very important that the defense tries to throw out whatever evidence is trying to be introduced in this case from that phone, because that literally could be the nail in the coffin if they can introduce certain things from the phone. So I'm very happy that it's her that is presenting the objection, and I am looking forward to seeing more from her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you make a great point. The evidence from the phone is very important here. We're talking about that text message that the prosecution is probably going to be looking to get before this jury in a very prominent way. Now, we have a circumstantial case here. And Jeffrey, I want to ask you, when you have a circumstantial case from the prosecution, it's your job to connect the dots with various pieces of evidence in order to get that before the jury and prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. But I want to shift now to the defense side. When you have your confession confronted for your client with a circumstantial case from the prosecution, you want to sort of pick apart the evidence and seek to exclude whatever points of evidence that the prosecution is looking to put forth before the jury so they can't connect those dots. What do you think with this piece of evidence? What do you think the goal is for the defense with this particular piece of evidence? And do you think if they are able to get it excluded, that's going to be a significant blow to the prosecution's case?
Yeah, so a few things, okay? Number one, I want to jump back a little bit because all of this should be viewed in the context of Melly's life is on the line. This is a death penalty case. It doesn't get any more serious in the United States of America. And so I want to push back a little bit because when people are talking about body language and they're talking about laughing in the courtroom, they're talking about professionalism. And you can be a good lawyer and you can still slip up. I've seen very, very good lawyers become, friendly with their clients or have a rapport with their clients, which we need to have. But the courtroom ain't the place for it. Go talk to them at the jail if you want to laugh. So it has nothing to do with her gender. It has nothing to do with anything nefarious. That is severe. You are not sitting in a place where you are laughing. This is a death penalty case and you're in a court of law. Decorum is important. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's number one. Number two, when we're talking about the keeping this evidence out and keeping as much of the cell phone data out, the government wants it all to go to the jury because they want the jury to get this Instagram message where he supposedly says something along the lines of, I did that, shush. That is what they're saying is in his phone. And that's why they want to tie it to him as his phone. That's why they want to make the logical leap that this is his phone. And that's why the defense is fighting so hard against it, because it is the entire case. Right. It is the entire case, because when you're talking about circumstantial evidence, you can look the jury in the eye and tell them they have to shake hands with their conscience that they had to make a logical leap to convict your client and sentence him to death in a state that's going to allow them to sentence him to death without a unanimous jury. This is as serious as it gets. That's why this is stuff going on in this case.
No, absolutely. Great points from both of you. And we're going to take a quick break here at Law and Crime. When we come back, more of this trial. Rapper Ynw Melly down in Florida, murder trial. Stay tuned here at Law and Crime. Welcome back to Law and Crime. I'm Imran Ansari, and we are covering the trial of South Florida rapper Ynw Melly, where we have been seeing clips from the court regarding the admissibility of certain expert testimony and evidence. Let's bring in my two great guests to sort of wrap up the show and talk about what we've seen and get their take on what they think is going to happen in this trial. Who's going to get the upper hand? Mina, I want to start with you. We're mid-trial. We have a lot to go, but what do you think about the trial so far? Do you think the prosecution is putting on an effective case, or do you think the defense is taking an upper hand?
I think the prosecution had a poor case prior to today. I think they got some wins today. I'm interested to see in what happens with the cell phone evidence. As I said before, it's a very important piece of what they're arguing here. I find it interesting that they're trying to introduce maps and try to locate Melly and in relation to where the deceased were, because they don't know where the shooting happened. And the other obstacle that they have as well is the fact that they were all on the same plan. Not all, but at least two members were on the same plan. So they're going to have to prove who had the cell phone at what time. And I'm interested to see in how all of this turns out with the cell phone evidence, because in my opinion, it's the more important evidence that we have at this point.
Right. And Jeffrey, same question to you. We're mid-trial. We're not anywhere near the end of this case. But what do you think so far? Do you think the prosecution has come off with a good start? Or do you think the defense has a fighting chance here?
Well, I think we can look at the judge's responses to some of these arguments that are being made, because the judge is a window into somebody being presented the evidence at the same time the jury is, because he clearly wasn't involved in pretrial rulings because he's interpreting another judge's rulings. So let's look at him in a vacuum. This is somebody who hears trials. This is somebody who understands what cell phone data is. He's able to speak about it intelligently. He's not some old judge sitting on the bench that's never been familiar with this stuff. And he is confused to high heavens with the prosecution's arguments. He doesn't know what cell phone numbers they're talking about. He doesn't know what cell phones they're talking about. He doesn't know what data they're trying to get in and why. He sees no roadmap for where this is going. And so if that's what the judge is saying, let's now look at the jury in the box who knows even less about this stuff. And that tells you exactly how the prosecution's case is going, not well.
Right, and we still have quite a bit to go in this trial, but we see what we have so far with the prosecution and defense attacking the evidence pretty vigorously here. So Mina and Jeffrey, I want to thank you for joining me today as we broke down this trial. And stay tuned here at Law and Crime, continuing coverage of the Ynw Melly trial here at Law and Crime. Thank you for joining me.